I'm excited and grateful to be able to now offer you the second interview with Marina Moore Weems. She is the niece of Dr. Robert Moore, the neo-Jungian who gave us the King, Warrior, Magician, Lover system of archetypes. If you don't know Dr. Robert Moore, I recommend that you watch the first of these interviews. I also recommend that you read his book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, Archetypes of the Mature Masculine. Essentially, he was a leader in the men's movement. He was a professor in Chicago. I don't remember the institution's name right now. But he was a man with many hats, though my relationship to him was as the man who gave me a system to conceptualize what it means to be a man in a whole new way. And he gave that system to a lot of men. And I built my reputation as a men's coach and as a course facilitator in large part on the foundation of his work. Some of you know me as the founder of the Reclaim Unit Throne training. Its heyday was back around 2014, 15, 16, 17. Though I noticed when I was reflecting earlier today that something happened for me around the death of Dr. Robert Moore, in which actually my influence and my impact and my even financial, my income as an entrepreneur started to peter off as a result of the death of Dr. Robert Moore. And in many ways, I've come to see how closely my life is connected to his life. And one of the touching things that Marina Moore Weems told me while we were speaking, this is not in the recorded part of the interview, but she said to me that speaking with me was much like speaking with her uncle. And I understand why, based on the conversation that we had, that you're about to start watching. So I do this in large part for myself, because I need to get some of the things that got stuck inside of me that had me start struggling more in my entrepreneurial activities and in my men's work that got stopped by his death. And I want that unstuck. But there's also so many of you out there who care about knowing the full story. We succeeded in the last round of this interview, or the first interview rather, that we did in 2022. We succeeded in clearing his name, which I'm just very grateful for. The interview that we did is actually now on his Wikipedia article, so it's for everyone to see when they're ready. So if you haven't watched it, please go and watch it now before you watch this interview, because the interview you're about to watch is a lot more speculative. We're going into many of the murky areas around his death, his marriage. There's a lot about this story that is surprising, shocking, kind of like a horror movie in many ways. It's not really what you'd expect when you see a grounded, wise man as Dr. Robert Moore speak with such eloquence and gravitas about the mature masculine. But it's the truth. And so today, Marina Moore Weems, Dr. Robert Moore's niece, is going to tell all. Welcome back, Marina.
Thank you. Good to be back and talk with you.
It's been 3 years since we connected last time, and 10,000 people have watched it since then. And when you reach out to me, I think your singular intention was to clear your uncle's name, and I think we succeeded.
I'm glad to hear that, because that hurt my heart a lot, that anyone would believe the initial story.
Yeah, I think for me it was just strange
It's when you feel like something is glitchy about reality. It
Mhm.
just didn't fit.
Right.
And I know I've spoken with other men, and some women have also reported on it. It's like something didn't seem right. And that analysis that we did together with the forensics report and all of the official documents, I don't think you can't refute that evidence. I mean, it's fact, it's objective fact. And we also concluded that, um, for whatever reason, and maybe this is something that we can speculate about today, because I do feel like today is going to be a bit more speculative. We don't have like documents saying that this and this happened. But
Right.
last time we spoke about how basically detectives had been totally negligent in the line of duty and refused to look at evidence that were not really up for interpretation. And that's shocking to me. So,
After I did the research into that particular police department
yeah.
and, found the statistics of, cases solved, I really wasn't surprised, and,
Mm,
yet I thought that if I were persistent enough, that somebody
yeah.
would listen to me and write something, differently,
Yeah.
for the newspaper at least, and, front page news is really never forgotten, and a retraction probably would have never been read, but I
Mm,
think it should have been done.
yeah. Yeah, so I guess the harm has been done
Mhm.
to some level, because I don't know if it was front page news in the Chicago Sun, but it
Yes,
was,
front page.
yeah. It's hard to erase that from people's memory.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and, so, things that I came across a blog and some of the comments I was so offended by,
Yeah.
and they were just going with what the media had written in the paper. I understand people just jump and think that's the truth, but, forensics
We have
evidence
noticed
online.
that. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. We have noticed that lately.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So that's I don't know, history. We can't do much about it, but
right.
I think for the people who care, this story has now become available. And I don't know if you're aware, but of course there's the Wikipedia article about your uncle, Dr. Michael Moore.
Yes, yes, I was glad that
And
was revised a bit.
yeah, the interview is now on that Wikipedia article.
That's
Yeah,
excellent.
it is. So people who um, fall in love with his work, they find that Wikipedia article, they find the interview, and they come and look. I don't know why, but there's been an influx in. There's been a lot of people watching lately. So
I
yeah,
wondered,
not sure.
if it had anything to do when there seems to be a bit more interest is maybe when m some class has just occurred and my uncle's name has come up or, things like
Right.
that. It seems like books sell more at one time of year than another.
Oh,
So
interesting. You've noticed that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
His books
So,
are
and
still widely read because, we still have pretty good sales, especially of the King Warrior Magician Lover book.
are the individual volumes on the archetypes, have they been reprinted?
No, not yet.
No, because I think they're quite hard to get a hold of.
Well, it's something that I have worked on and also in the past couple of years have found myself unable to get around to that, but I do
Mm.
have manuscripts that need some attention, need to get to a printer.
Okay, so you possess manuscripts from your uncle that haven't been
Yes.
published.
Yes.
Oh, wow. What are they on?
Um Well, some of them were, rewrites, and,
Mm,
there's one brand new one. It's not actually in my possession at this time. His friend, Rob Johnson, has them, and they had planned
mm,
a plane trip down here, and then my brother and I were unable to meet with them. But
mm.
his, former editor, who had them, I did finally get them back. It took a bit.
Okay. It's been a while since I've been investing my time and energy into the Jungian world now, but Rob Johnson, he's a Jungian, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
He
Is he
studied
the
under my uncle. Mhm.
okay? Is he the guy that wrote He and She?
No, I don't believe so,
Okay.
but I'm not for certain what all he has particularly written. I
Hmm.
discovered Rob Johnson after my uncle's death,
Okay.
and I had remembered an email that I had received when Uncle Bob had to have his quadruple heart bypass, and
Hmm.
rather than me being able to speak with his wife, Margaret,
Hmm.
he left Rob Johnson in charge of talking with people about his medical condition.
Hmm.
And I had recalled
That's an
that.
interesting choice.
Uh, it plays right to what else I, learned about the relationship between my uncle and his wife. It
Yeah.
didn't surprise me.
Yeah.
And,
And
she didn't care for us and didn't really want, Bob to have any contact with us anymore, but, he made sure that we were able to get in touch with someone about his
mm,
condition.
right.
So and that was Rob, and
Mm,
when I finally went back and, went through all my emails to find that name and it had that phone number,
mm,
um, Rob cried because he didn't know what had happened to my uncle's body or
mm,
how to even have any closure about it,
mm.
and so I've seen Rob on a couple of occasions. He has come here, and I've taken him out to the cemetery where I had placed my uncle's ashes, and, Rob and I kinda bonded through talking about my uncle,
Yeah. Beautiful.
and he has been a great help in getting the whole box of manuscripts back from Lori Brown, who was
Mm,
Bob's editor.
okay. No. Great.
Once I got in touch with her, um, she was so glad to have heard from me and wanted to help in any way she could, and after that, she answered none of my emails, and I did much research to find her and finally found her church that she was pastoring and sent, registered mail there, about her having my uncle's intellectual property, and it was Rob Johnson and Michael Baraz who took Michael's plane and flew there and finally got all of those things back. So now I need to get with them again and do some publishing.
Hmm. It's odd that she just went silent.
Well, the audio recordings that were being sold, um,
Mm,
by I don't know if I should even say all the names, but I had to, uh, file a lawsuit in federal court against a man who was selling all of his audio recordings and, not willing to pay us any kind of commissions, and I wanted my uncle's intellectual property back, and he refused to give it,
is that
and
on robinmoorephd.com or in that?
those audio
Mm,
recordings are now because, he finally when my brother and I didn't back down and were about ready to actually have a court date, he
mm,
decided he would give us all the recordings back. And Michael
mm,
Baraz, had hosted, um, the website where those were being sold. And so he has been the one who has actually opened up the Robert Moore PhD site now and is continuing the sale of those
Mm,
audios.
okay. Who is Michael? Michael Morez.
My uncle had paid him, and I didn't find this out until all the probate court when all these names come up that you still owe money to. And I'm like, well, who is that? And he was the one who had the host website, like where I use GoDaddy for my business. He was the host, and my uncle paid him to have his books on that site where Christopher Pricing could sell them. And it was Christopher Pricing whom I had to actually,
Get the property rights back from.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like there's quite a bit of low integrity behavior around things
yes.
which
And,
happened.
and Christopher
Yeah.
Pricing and Lori Brown were wanting to use the manuscripts that Lori was still holding and put something else out on Christopher's site to sell. And so she was initially happy to hear from me. And when I wanted the intellectual property back, she no longer answered me.
Mm,
So I had to threaten the same thing with her. But it was Michael and Rob that flew there and finally got them.
wow.
Now I've got to do something with them.
Mm. It's disappointing the way that people choose to act in life,
Yes.
especially around something that's been created in order to serve humanity, and then you turn that into a way to feed your own shadow.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, it's
I'm,
disappointing, but
I'm not
mm,
sure that I had told you amongst all my research because the whole event with what happened to him, had
to
me
your uncle.
constantly researching and trying to come to
Mm,
grips with what happened. And I would accidentally come upon information on the web. And I
mm,
discovered that someone in England was selling a book without giving my uncle any credit, but it was from the King Warrior Magician Lover, but he switched around the words in the title and
mhm,
made it seem like it was his book. And I
mm,
notified the publishing company, HarperCollins, and they were able to get him to take them down and revise and had to give credit where he used my uncle's words
mm,
because it
mm.
was pure plagiarism.
Wow. Okay. Well, disappointing, though I am increasingly realizing the, the oftentimes low level of integrity that people are actually showing up with. And it's the nature of the work that he was doing and the work that I've also been committing myself to is to do something to change that. But the it really is an uphill struggle. Have you taken the time to read any of the commentary on the video that we recorded?
Only a bit.
Yeah.
I really don't find myself being able to sit and be on the web much at all
Mm.
due to my busy schedule.
Yeah. You see, I'm grateful for this video. This is vindication and preserves Robert Moore's legacy. I hope every person who's been impacted by Robert Moore's work watches this. Yeah. I've been fortunate enough to be shown the path to Dr. Moore's work recently on my journey to inner work and early adulthood. It's almost a mercy to have discovered this unfortunate tragedy on the same day that I found this interview. Yeah,
No. No.
yeah. So I think it will be be nice for your heart to just take 5 minutes to go through this, because I do feel like there is a spirit of redeeming and clearing his name coming through these messages. Mission accomplished.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, very good. I'm a woman, but I'm a mom of three boys. My boys teach me to fight. My dad committed suicide. I searched just peace and logic in this immense love that ties. This man did such wonderful work. Yeah, he did. Okay. So I wanna just bring something personal in as well, because I'm not here just for all of you who are watching. I'm here for myself. Um, the the reason why I stepped forth to do the interview for you in the first place, obviously, you found me and you requested
Hmm.
this opportunity, and I I think it was a good 5 years between we had initial contact until we actually recorded that first conversation. Because it's 9 years ago, I think that your uncle died,
Yes.
and initially my sense of it was that there was something glitchy about the story. That was clear. But I also had this feeling, based on the initial conversations with you, that there were like things that felt off in a kind of a dark way, in the
Yes.
kind of dark, in the kind of occult way,
It did to
demonic,
me always. Hmm.
demonic, demonic way. And so I'm somebody who has immersed myself in the practice of seeing the unseen for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And of course, I can't necessarily see the exact objects or things or life forms that are there, but I can sense them. And so the first conversation we had, I wanted to keep it like just really factual and really clean, so that there wasn't any possibility of poking what's in the dark. And I come with a different intention today, actually. Um, I come with the intention of actually poking what's in the dark. And and in part, it's because of the journey that I've been on. When we last spoke, I was still somewhat invested in doing the King Warrior Magician Lover work in the world.
Hmm.
I don't do that right now. Um, there's been a couple of guys recently who have wanted access to the ultimate intro to masculine archetypes, which is a training that I made as an introduction to your uncle's work. So it's that door isn't closed entirely for me. But I had a concern, especially based on a ritual that we hosted in the Reclaim Your Inner Throne men's initiation that I created, um, based in large part on your uncle's work, but also based on my own channel, if you will. Um, we did this process that is inspired by shamanic traditions in Tibet and among the Inuits. Um, it's possible that it exists elsewhere as well, but it's a tradition of feeding your demons. And
Hmm.
there's like an alchemical principle there, that your demons are these split off parts of your psyche
Hmm.
that sort of come back to feed on you, because they want to come home, in a sense. They want to be part of the whole again. And so instead of like running away from them, you actually turn towards them and say, yeah, well, come home, just take what you need and become an integrated part of my psyche again. And I would tell the men to go do that in the middle of the forest at night, to really ramp up the experience and to make
Hmm.
it an encounter with fear. And it was a very powerful experience for people. But in this, in the in the last several years, um, I have felt, and this is also one of those see in the dark things, I have felt what I can only describe as more demonic activity in the world. And I came to this place where I was wondering, do I actually know what I'm doing when I tell these men to lay down in the woods at night and have demons feed on them? Like, because, yeah, there's psychological metaphors for disintegration, psychological fragmentation, but what if there are other demons as well that I'm not consciously bringing in, but that they come? So this has been a huge process for me. I've turned increasingly back to Jesus and to a more Christian religious um, context. I was deeply into Tibetan Buddhism for a long time. That is why I knew about the feeding your demons practice. And that's been a huge part of my process. And I'm now in a personal huge inquiry about the different realms that we work with. When we do depth psychology, when we do shamanic work, if you would like to call it that, but also spiritual work. You pray to God. You pray to many things, possibly, but I choose to pray to God and Jesus these days. So I'm giving you this context because I came to wonder, is there something dark coming through King Warrior Magician Lover? Because of the way that your uncle died, and he was attracted to a wife that clearly was deeply into the occult, and we're going to speak about that shortly. But also the this feeling that when I was going deep into this magician sector of the psyche, that it would easily be a dark energy that would come through. And in my perception, there is a huge sort of shadow magician, kind of like just massive in humanity right now, that just seems to want to like twist and bend and flip reality on its head, and to make people believe in things that aren't true, and so on and so forth. And all of this started to give me the heebie-jeebies, to be quite
Mhm.
frank. And so I'm like, I don't know if you're following me so far. It's like, is this making sense to you, what I'm saying?
Well, yes, and what it brings to my mind is the very last
Yeah.
conversation that I had with my uncle was
Mm,
a bit similar to what you had just said,
right.
um, and he had come back around and was having Christian friends, which shocked me when he acknowledged that because, I mean, he had been a reverend. He was the, official at my wedding, and,
Mm.
I have his robes here, and I I was shocked, that he finally had come back around to Christianity because I never knew that he had actually strayed away from that. He did study
Uh,
the occult, and it again, it's mere speculation, but I think he studied Margaret, and, his mind always craved, you know, to figure out things and why. That's why he and a co-author of a book, they went undercover in an occult. This was when he
yeah,
was
you
quite
said.
young,
Yeah,
and,
you said.
so I don't think that curiosity ever changed because I never could figure out another reason why he was with Margaret,
Yeah.
because, her whole interest, it seemed to be Wiccan or something, and, when he told me that, he had Christian friends again, and then, the things that I found in his home when I went there after his death, again, were like spiritual things of protection,
Yeah.
and, protection from what then? And I had talked to him about my youngest son, and he said, "Marina," he said, "there's evil all around you, all around all of us, all the time, and they're just waiting to get in. And you have to constantly, ask for that protection."
Mm.
And it was such a different kind of conversation that I'd ever had with him, and none of that has ever left my mind. Uh,
Yeah,
it
I
it
get really
it
touched
made me
when you
think
say this,
differently.
because it triggers something in my own life where, like, with my own realizations about um, the forces that are moving in the non-physical these days,
Mhm,
actually praying for protection, though not in a magical way, but in a Christian way, has become a really important part of my own life. So I pray for, my son and my wife to be protected. I pray for our home to be protected,
mhm.
and as well, I used to be uh, drawn to dark women, women who were uh, manifesting sort of occult
Yes.
um, energy, if you will.
Hmm.
And so there's so much that I feel in common between me and your uncle. So yeah, it's really touching to feel. So shall we speculate a little bit then? I mean, you already say that you think he got together with Margaret because he was basically fascinated by what sort of flowed through her.
Yes.
One of the things I remember from the previous conversation that we had was you noted how she was dressed in their wedding and that she
Hmm.
was wearing all kinds of snake symbolism.
Yes.
So what was that? Do you know?
Well, none of us knew what to think about that.
Hmm.
Uh, but it was, the snake wrapped around her arm, and
Was it like a
you know,
golden snake around her bicep area, like up on her arm
um,
here?
I don't recall the color, but yes, it was up high,
Hmm.
and the barefoot outdoor thing. I mean, which there's nothing wrong with that, but
No.
my family was just taken aback a little bit. Didn't know what to make of things,
Mm-hmm. Mm.
and
She was different in a
was
way.
different.
Mm.
Yes.
Mm.
In their house, and supposedly her little nook, were many doll heads, just the heads. And,
That's odd. That's actually legit creepy.
yeah, we thought it was creepy.
Yeah.
We thought a lot of the house was creepy.
Mm.
So, and then all her insects. Um, so she supposedly was doing child psychology, and this little room that she would take them in, as a parent, I would not had left my child there with doll heads and insects. But,
Because the
you know,
the the vibe sounds like it was all wrong. There was something dark about the
something strange. Yes.
yeah. Did you have a feeling of a presence of some kind? Was there like a dark presence in there?
Yes, my brother, my mother, and I, it was a very eerie feeling.
Mm.
And the fact that there were so many ways to travel through this massive house and into all these little weird rooms. And one had where you could lift up a plank in the floor, and there was this little box, this hole, and yeah, we actually couldn't find our way back out of this house, and the lawyer had to retrieve us and figure out how to get back to the front door.
Really?
It was a
You
it
don't
was
just get lost in a house though. So it's like, how did that happen?
there were so many little hallways and a bridge into this room, and maybe it's possible we were so, like, taken aback by what we kept seeing in their house, not what would be expected, I think, from having known the way my uncle grew up, that maybe we weren't paying attention to how we got to that room. We
Right.
were just
Wow.
going and just kept going and kept going.
Well,
And
tell me more about this house. So it's like on the outskirts of Chicago. Is it more like a
it
manor,
was
or
in
it sounds
it was
huge?
it was in Hyde Park, like where
Yeah.
Obama had lived.
Okay.
And,
I,
it
I'm not
was
familiar with Chicago. So is that central? Is it? in some sort
Uh,
of
I
affluent
believe
area outside of Chicago where rich people live,
no,
or?
it's more central in Chicago, I believe, and
Mm.
it's kinda surrounded by a not so nice area, so you have to go through that to get into this nice park. It's not so far from the University of Chicago,
Okay.
and that's the reason the university police also came to his house.
Mm.
He had retired there after teaching there for so many years, and, when I tell you that there were such contradicting reports, the fire department had a report, the Chicago Police Department had a report, the University of Chicago Police had a report,
Hmm.
and they contradicted each other.
That makes no sense. That's very strange.
So, yeah, and it was like a fortress, and there was a rock wall around it and a big iron gate,
Yeah.
and it gave a weird feeling, it just entering,
Mm.
just just entering the house.
This sounds like a big house, an expensive house.
Yes, Margaret wanted it, and
Uh-huh.
so my uncle, after all these years, uh, he had allowed his brother, my dad, to farm all of our land out here in Arkansas, but Margaret wanted this house, and she talked him into coming here and selling any land that was just in his name,
Yeah.
and, they did whatever they had to do to get that house because she wanted it,
I get a
which
I get a
it
weird feeling about all this. It's like because the way that you're talking about it, it sounds like a scene from a movie, like
yeah, I
the
mean, you
whole
wanna envision
haunted house.
gargoyles in there.
Yeah, h-
Yeah.
like I guess like the haunted house on a hill kind of a thing. Like lightning strikes in the
Yes.
background.
Yeah. Mhm. That's what it felt like.
That's what it felt like. Okay,
Mhm.
and your uncle thought that was a good idea. That's what I don't get. Like, why
No,
is
I don't think that he thought that was a good idea,
okay?
but it I think she had a very strong personality and would get her way one way or another. I mean,
Uh,
obviously, there had to be some reason that she would chase him with knives and he had to lock himself in his office. He may have disagreed with her about something, I don't know.
Well, that's a pretty big story in and of itself. Like, how often
Mhm.
did that happen? And was he legitimately for fear of his life,
Oh,
or
he
he
was
was fearing for his life?
legitimately yes, because he called his big brother, my dad,
Mm.
and, my dad would have left to go help because he ended up, being sheriff of Lonoke County here in Arkansas, and I don't know if you ever saw the movie Walking Tall with the Sheriff Buford Pusser, but if anyone's familiar with that, that would be my dad,
It's about him.
and, no, but
Oh, okay.
my dad had that same
It,
personality
I
that if
see.
you crossed him, you'd pay,
Hmm.
and, I mean, he would go and defend his loved ones. You could
Sounds
not
good.
have kept him from
So he
it.
was a proper man, basically.
Yes,
Mm. Mm.
and, my dad tried to call many of Bob's friends and former co-authors, uh, and close people about what was going on with Bob, that he was no longer really the same person,
Mm.
and, it all
As
had
a
to do with
result
Mark
of, as a result of
marrying her.
marrying her. Hmm.
She basically tried to cut him off from anyone, that he knew before her.
I mean, this is like crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean,
they all kept a good front, but some of us knew what was really going
mm,
on.
I wanted to read one of the comments on the YouTube video. See, he writes, "I'm probably one of the last people to have spoken to Robert before his tragic death. I I don't know who he is, but it's a very interesting post. I was totally unaware of any problems that might have existed between him and his late
Mhm.
wife. But being a believer in Robert's theories myself, I could postulate the following: that he actually fell victim to the forces he spent so many of his years analyzing, namely the dark feminine. That is not to suggest that his wife was an evil woman. In fact, I wouldn't know if she was, but that Robert's positive masculine energies somehow summoned their opposite. Whether his actual wife became a conduit for these energies remains to be known, but throughout his life, Robert gave example after example of how, when a man performs spiritual growth towards his own masculinity, there is another force that appears: the witch. That is the force that eats men, as in the fairy stories that he so loved and thought, and a hero's last stand is to pass through those and come out alive. Perhaps the reasons are much more mundane, but I think it would do the man an honor to actually use his theories to explain his end rather than use his end, as so many do, to discredit his theories." Don't quite get that. And
That's an amazing, uh,
uh, uh,
encapsulation, basically, of what I
yeah,
think happened.
again, just to finish, again, this comes from the mouth of an admirer, so take it with a grain of salt. And then he does an asterisk. I hear that salt works against witches anyways. So tell me, I think we're talking about somebody um he's onto something here.
Oh, I think so. I think he hit the nail on the head,
Mm,
um, and what also maybe contributes to that is, the last conversation I had with him when he's talked about the returning to Christianity
mm.
and, but that there's evil forces all around us. Um, when we got there, um, the bedroom before you got to the master bedroom, it had, a glass bottle of smooth like gemstones in it, leaned up sideways on the door frame. And as I did some research, it had something to do with spiritual protection. And the bed was turned back like someone was about to go to sleep in there. And I assume maybe my uncle was staying in there. That this particular time, he didn't make it to the bed. And, not sure how that played out, but I think he knew he needed protection and that he was moving back towards his Christian spirituality.
And by the sounds of it, he didn't yet trust that enough,
Right.
so that he had to do various kind of magical rituals in order to protect himself.
I believe so.
Wow. It's quite a story, Marina.
It's it was incomprehensible to me that that could have ever happened to him. That,
Yeah, because to
um,
you, he was your Christian uncle, Robert
yeah,
Moore, right? And then you
yes,
realize he's now living in a house where witchcraft is.
I believe so.
Yeah. Mm. And your perception, if I read you correctly, is also that some of that witchcraft was directed in a negative way towards him.
Oh, yes, I believe so. And, there were many domestic calls to their house as well by the police. So we couldn't ever get copies of those domestic calls of what was happening.
And so if this man who wrote the comment is correct, then it's possible that your uncle saw your wife not primarily as a partner in love and in life, but as a kind of like a final end of level, guardian, a quest, a mission to accomplish, a mystery to solve, that there was something in him that wanted to prove something to himself.
Well, she was a client of his when this started. And she definitely had things going on in her, and that he would tell us, Don't ask her. Don't ask her. She had a really tragic event, but shh, shh, don't ask her about it." And I didn't even have enough information to begin to form a question. I mean, so I don't know what he was trying to hide, but she told him something that he was working on with her.
I
So, yeah,
can,
West?
I can, yeah, let me share a couple of reflections with you. One of the patterns that I've noticed in men over the years, and even in myself, is that there is at least for a particular kind of man, there is a kind of a longing. I don't know if longing. There's almost like a desire for adventure, for a quest to face certain chaos or darkness or evil, and then to, in a way, become greater in the process. And so several of those men, more or less consciously, are attracted to women that pose that very challenge for them, so that these are women that are really dark and really chaotic and can snap at the blink of an eye and turn into like a violent demon, basically.
That's her.
I've experienced this myself. I've had former intimate partners manifest, and then, well, I was done with that, and then I met Michelle, who's like the sweetest, most beautiful, graceful woman ever. So I think that was my way uh, of conquering, or sort of completing the quest. Uh,
Mhm.
but I think it's almost like his quest was aborted halfway through, and he stumbled on something and like fell on his sword or something like that, you know,
Mhm.
and it didn't go the way he had planned.
Well, in the end, what I do know, and this came through, the realtor because, they died with,
Yeah.
the house had sold, but they still needed their signature.
Right.
And the realtor and then an attorney who was handling the title work is how I found out this information. That it went from being worried about her having enough money if he were, um, not able to do conferences at all anymore.
Hmm.
And, okay, Cypher, go, honey. And, the, she was wanting to save the money, and that's why they were going to sell the house.
Hmm.
But then she kept looking for more upscale places and wanted a condo. And then she wanted to remodel this condo. And so it obviously wasn't that she was worried about money, but she had decided, I guess, if he were going to be unable to continue working to provide for her, that
Mm.
she needed to sell this house to get into something else she wanted before he, I don't know, went to a nursing home or whatever. Who knows what she would have done.
Mm.
But he had decided against that, that he wasn't moving and wasn't going to, didn't want to sell this house. And then they both end up dead. So I don't know. Was there a heated discussion about maybe he was not going to sign that day?
Mm.
Or,
Right. But
and she wanted the
uh,
money to be able
but here's the
to have
thing,
this
Marina.
condo?
In our last conversation, I believe you said that his last will and testament was missing.
Yes.
So that's strange. If the story that you describe is what played out, that gives me the
Yes.
feeling of like a third a third person.
And
I
I
don't know.
actually see
I
that.
don't fully understand the practical implications of a will and testament being gone, but I assume um it's the only copy of a legally binding contract. Is that
Mhm.
is that correct?
And and there was none in that envelope. Yes. So, I actually brought the idea of the third party up to the, head detective, head
Yeah.
investigator, and I found it strange that Margaret's brother, who lives there in Chicago, immediately told, the attorney that was selling the house for them, um well, they had locked me out of here. They had locked me out of here. To me, that was, too much on the defensive. Like,
Mm,
let's make sure they know I couldn't have gotten in here.
okay. So,
Um,
right.
but you can get over a rock wall.
Mm, okay. So you don't feel so good about this brother then, I take it.
No,
No.
because evidently she was not close to her family, and if she had locked him out of there, maybe living in Chicago, maybe he kept coming to her and trying to coerce her into money, or I mean, I can only speculate. I don't know him.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. I mean,
but
we don't
without
want to
a
make accusations on this call that we
Mhm.
cannot or back up,
Right.
but I hear you. Like it's strange. It's a strange behavior.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought it would be worth looking into,
Yes.
but the police did not want to pursue absolutely anything
That's
more
what
into the
doesn't make any
case.
sense to me whatsoever. Like he's he wasn't like an A-list celebrity, but he was someone that was of, quite high standing in
Yeah.
to a lot of people, and that you should just let that case just be neglected in that way, or yeah, not thoroughly investigated. It doesn't make any sense to me. Of course, yeah, of course, the department doesn't have enough resources, but you can't be a police department that does nothing but file reports all day. You have to do some level of detective work, surely. So it's weird. It's really weird. It's like let me speculate. Um, and again, we're not here to prove anything, but let me speculate. What if there was some kind of outside influence working on the detectives, saying leave the case alone?
Well, that's definitely a possibility.
And why would they do that?
Well, there were there were there was a safe in the house that I told them, "Don't open unless I'm there,"
Mm.
and that wasn't adhered to. So what was in that safe that might have been taken away? Where were the firearms in the house?
Mm.
They were gone.
Well, so was this what the detectives did? They removed these things without your permission?
No one knows what happened. They did find, of course, the 357 that had been fired,
Yeah.
both of them,
Yeah.
and, but there was obviously another firearm because there was other ammunition, and it was gone.
Oh, there were Are you telling me there were 2 types of ammunition on the scene of the crime?
Well, in the house, I'm not sure where they found the other ammunition, but that would
Okay.
suggest there was a different firearm there beforehand.
So there were at least so there was ammunition found for 2 weapons, but only 1 weapon was found.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we have ourselves like a real murder mystery here. And I'm sure somebody qualified. There was, I think I tagged you on a
Mhm.
Facebook post where somebody suggested that there are places where people do this more or less because it's fun for them. It's like a hobby, almost like a computer game or a board game. You know, you want to be
Mhm.
Sherlock Holmes and you want to figure it out. And I don't know, is that something that we should
Oh, that
consider doing?
I considered that and talked with my friends about that who were all suggesting that,
Yeah.
a few years ago, and, I think I had much more energy about everything having to do with my uncle in the few years that followed, and it was a
Yeah.
nervous, anxious, depressed, energy that I had to try to write my uncle's name, and I finally, got over the bad depression I had, over his death,
Mm.
and maybe things have not seemed so pressing to me,
Yeah,
but, I still agree that it could be done
I think so.
and
I
that it
want you to
should
also
be.
know, Marina, like you may have under the right kind of leadership, you may have quite a bit of support out there. I even saw comments on the post um, sharing that they would be willing to provide financial support to take
Oh, really?
to take the process further. And I don't know, people say things and then they don't mean them. I don't know, but I I think it would be nice to get some kind of closure around this.
I
Mm.
don't know that true closure will ever come until we speak with him in heaven to know what really happened, but,
Yeah.
it might be one of those crime stories that are never solved,
Yeah.
um,
But the one
but I do
thing
know that
mm,
but I do know that and knew it before the forensics report. I felt it in my soul.
you knew it wasn't
He
what
didn't
happened.
kill
Yeah.
anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
He
A-
wasn't that kind of person.
And we've proven that. Like the forensics report
Right.
proves that. And and so we will speculate, oh, your grandson doesn't sound very well at all, does he?
He's in another room with the door shut. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
it's
couldn't
okay,
send him
but
to school like that.
is he unwell? He's coughing a lot.
Yes, yeah.
Mm.
He's taking albuterol inhaler right now and cough medicine and Tylenol.
Okay. I'm
Being
sorry
a
to hear that.
respiratory therapist myself, I mean, there's really not much more that they would do if I took him to the hospital. Just give
Mm,
him more albuterol and try to open up his airways and
mm.
So
Mm.
he
I'm
has
sorry to
these
hear that.
problems now and then.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I had asthma when I was little, but I grew out of it.
Mhm. Think that certain triggers right now are what's causing this.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. So I'm just sad with the feeling that there are things happening here that don't feel entirely at the level of, the, the secular world, the practical, this happened, because there's an energy that's coming through when I even just tuning into it. And yeah, this is an ability that has served me well. When I tune into things, I don't typically like get random like nonsense. I feel something that's real.
Mm. Mhm.
And it's almost like I feel a portal somewhere with some dark energy streaming through into the house. And whether Margaret is tending to that portal, or I think it sounds to me like Margaret is severely traumatized and with various psychological um, issues, and uh, where there's a trauma, there is also, this is one of the things that I learned along the way, and I actually even taught this in Reclaiming the Throne. Where there's a trauma, there is also a gateway for demonic possession. And what typically happens, so now I started this conversation today with talking about how I guided the men into the forest to be feeded upon by demons. And then I
Mhm.
started to wonder, like, okay, are there other demons that are certainly not part of the man's sort of fragmented psyche, but that rather enter from from an external source into the man through a place where he's fragmented? That was the thing that really kept me up at night. Can I justify putting this uh, ritual into this training and just telling men to go and do it? And I think it's fair to say that no man was ever hurt by it. But I came as I would say, as I started to move more towards Jesus, like all of these demonic reflections started to bother me more and more. And
Mhm.
I think this is one of the reasons why there's been quite a lot of people who have had a similar experience lately, because we have seen this darkness in the world that has been arising, and then we want something that's pure, right? And what I get is that there's an energy in the house, there's an energy in Robert's life, and there's probably an energy in his wife that is really, really impure. It's dirty. It's kind of like a vortex. It's pulling things into it. It's pulling things down, and it's for whatever reason associated with decapitated dolls, which doesn't make it better. There's little freaky insect collections, and one of the things, I'm kind of going off the deep end now, but I just figure I might do it. I listened to randomly. I recently listened to an interview with a former 33rd degree Freemason, and one of the things that he was telling about, he had been based in Chicago for a while, and he said that Chicago was the hotspot for satanic activity in all of the U.S.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, he said that.
Wow.
I cannot confirm it, but he said that. And so Chicago, essentially, to these people, is like a portal for demons into the United States. Um, and yeah, whatever rituals they do, I don't know. But it's like, I'm like, I had a moment earlier, a couple of days back. It's like, were there secret societies involved with what happened with your uncle?
Hmm.
Speculating, 100%. But I mean, what else can I do? Like, I don't, I don't have
Right.
anything but speculation. So yeah, I don't know if that evokes anything in you when I say that.
No, I can't. The only society that I'm thinking about was not satanic. I mean, he was involved with the Mankind Project, which also involved, like you were doing with the men, and going out into the woods,
Yes.
and they would have the weekends, you know, where they got back in touch with
Yeah.
their ancestral side, you know, the real masculine side of them. And so, you know, I
True.
think maybe Bob was always trying to reach that place too, and maybe that's why those dark forces kept after him.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was quite involved in MKP myself. I was part of setting it up in Scandinavia. Um, Obviously not a satanic organization, but
Right.
yeah, there is there's something that I also think is the case is that you can get to a place at the level of like the deep psyche, sort of in a kind of a Jungian reflection here, where you where you where you come to be exposed to certain kind of energies that you can actually learn to wield somehow, and develop certain powers from being in the presence of these energies. And I think a lot of what people have been doing in sort of the new age movement and stuff like that is that they have been moving closer to these energies without really being qualified to deal with them. And your uncle was highly aware of that danger. One of the things that he wrote about um was the Ark and the stories of the Ark, that if you weren't an initiated priest, then just by touching it, you would die. And so of course this is Indiana Jones film, and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, that these Nazi priests, they all melt as the various things inside of the Ark come out. And so there's this idea that you can be like a half initiated magician of some kind, and then and wield things without fully understanding what you're doing. And then the longing is to be a fully initiated magician, and so you have kind of reached the end of the journey. And I know the temptations of that. I think that is basically why people go into occult practices in the first place, because there is a hierarchical model where you can take increasing levels of initiation to rise in power is very essential
Mm.
inside of these secret societies and satanic societies. Like, you always have to initiate to get higher. Um, and so yeah, as again, that your uncle probably wasn't involved in any satanic society, but uh, I mean, he was returning to Christ. But at the same time, I just sense something in him that once was in me as well. That there is this, I want to see what's in the dark. I want to learn to master it. I want to claim dominion over these things, because in doing so, I can actually do good for other people. But then something comes out of the dark and kind of starts sucking you into it.
Mhm. Yeah. That's what his cousins also thought. They said he had changed, when he had gone undercover into the one occult, when he was young, that
Mm.
it changed him somewhat.
In a bad
And,
way
of
for them.
course, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Is there anything else you want to cover? I.
I did wanna ask your opinion, and we may, have covered it the previous time, but,
Hmm.
all the purple sashes over the doors, many of the doors throughout their house. I don't know if that was also a magician kind of thing, or
It really sounds like it. I invite whoever is familiar with occult symbolism and even ritual magic, as long as you come from a place of good intention, to share. Like, is there anything, like, I personally, I don't trust that lineage. I don't trust that place because it's prone with dangers and pitfalls. But those of you who are watching here, I think probably thousands are going to watch this one as well. Bring your wisdom and your knowledge about what may have happened there, like the gemstones, purple saches. Do you know what was in them?
In the sashes,
Yeah.
just like long scarves, just long
Oh yeah,
pieces
that's a
of
scarf. I
material.
thought a sash. I thought that was like a little bag. Okay.
No, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. So it's like a scarf that's.
Draped. Right. Like
Mm,
just draped over the tops of the doors, like with the door being open. And there's this purple draped there.
mm, mm.
And it was in several places of the house. So there's something about that purple over doorways, at doorways. I don't know.
So that was around the whole house,
Mhm.
and you know that it was your uncle who put it up.
No, I don't know that. And I cannot know about the the smooth rocks, the gemstones that were against the doorway. I mean, that's purely my speculation of somebody was going to sleep in this room, but they didn't make it there. And then him having spoken to me about protection, pray for protection, and that there's evil all around. So I'm just guessing.
Yeah. Biggest murder mystery ever.
Mhm.
Wow. I mean, it has everything. If you look at it from a like dramatic perspective, this could be a movie, you know. This could
Yeah.
really be a good movie. And who knows, maybe one day it will. Um, I know that you've been contacted by a documentary maker. I don't know if anything came out of that, but um, yeah, I guess we're getting to a place of completion, even though it feels really incomplete. That's the frustrating
Yeah.
part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's why I just had to finally take a step back and not let it consume me
Yeah.
any longer because it did for years. I mean, I was totally consumed by trying to figure everything out and contacting every co-author he ever had, any friends I could find, I mean, I had list upon list of trying to contact people and places
Mm.
to for closure, trying to figure it out.
Sounds as well like you actually experienced a portal that you got sucked into.
Yes, you could say that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there is a there is a pull. I can feel it. Like there's a pull into this place, the mystery, whatever happened.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't be surprised if the pull we're feeling is similar to what your uncle felt. And that's why it was with Margaret.
Yeah, I believe it had to be something like that.
Yeah.
There's no other explanation, honestly.
No. Okay. Well, let me just say that at the end, I pray to God that this is in service and that, that we are bringing the light of revelation here into the dark places and that there's goodness coming out of this and not more chaos
Yes.
from our conversation, and that I call upon protection, like God's protection for all of the things that we've spoken of, so that there is no uh, bleeding out of chaotic, demonic, weird energies upon anyone who's in this conversation or anyone listening to it. And that maybe as a community of people who cared about your uncle's work, that we can come from this place of pure heart and pure intention. For the love of God, don't anyone like make this into a way to aggrandize your own egos and become like something. That would be dishonorable at a level that I know I don't want to be associated with. It's like there's already too much of that happening in the story. It's disgusting. Um, so yeah, may it be so. Amen. Mm,
Amen.
mm, yeah. Okay. I guess that's it, Marina.
Okay.
We'll leave it on this note of to be continued. Or maybe not.
Yes. Um, We'll keep in touch, and
We will.
I need to get back with the man about wanting to do the documentary film and get back on this.
Yeah,
So I think the world should know.
I agree. And I think you're in a better place than you were the last time we had this conversation. So, I mean, let me know. I'm here for you. I do feel that there are other people who are here for you as well. And if you decide to take the next step, like I'll see what I can do to contribute.
Okay.
Mm, mm.
Thanks, Simon, so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I appreciate you telling his story.
Yeah, it's been an honor. Okay. Bye now. Thank
Okay.
you for watching. Feel free to write whatever in the comments. It would hopefully be a way for us to find out more.
Something has happened for me as a result of conducting this interview. I now see that the way that Robin Moore ended his life was in large part because of his fascination with the occult. I also saw how he was trying to return to Christ towards the latter days of his life. And one of the reasons why I let go of King Warrior Magician Lover a few years back and I didn't really teach it anymore was that I felt that there was something dark that was hidden there. And it was this thing. And now that it's exposed, I feel like it's time for me to perhaps reconsider my decision for how I relate with King Warrior Magician Lover and seeing the possibility of bringing it more into the kind of context that Robert Moore was pursuing himself, which was a Christ context. So I will be debriefing the things that I have learned from this interview, from the whole process of connecting with Marina. I will be publishing that on my Substack, and I will be putting that link on the screen now and also in the show notes. And I hope that you stay tuned because I think there are things coming now that may be completing and fulfilling certain things that Robin Moore was working on in his own life. I feel like I'm being called to bring more and to support Marina in that process as well. So yeah, we'll see where we go from here. I hope this has been helpful. Would love your comments down below. Whatever is moving in you, if you are feeling sad or distraught or that feeling like, okay, that was clarifying, just add it all down there in the comments below and we can have the conversation. Thank you so much for caring. This was a long conversation and you're still here. And also, I just ask of you at the very end, let's honor this man's legacy. There have been far too many men who have taken his work without giving him any mention. They don't mention his name. They just do their King Warrior Magician Lover thing. That's dishonorable. And as men who are here to allegedly build a new and better world, one of the first and most important pillars we need to put that down in the ground is honor. So I ask every one of you out there who's a men's coach or who's doing some kind of affiliated work, associated work with the King Warrior Magician Lover archetypes, Give Dr. Robin Moore credit where credit is due. That is the least that we can do. Okay? Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.